This rare green turtle was caught in a fisherman's net in the Adriatic Sea and was saved from the soup tureen by the head of the Natural Science Museum in Tirana. Professor Indrix Haxhiu said the young green turtle was netted along with 30 endangered loggerhead turtles. He said he was tempted to put it in formaldehyde for his museum, but changed his mind because they had never seen these species before. The turtle was marked and returned to the sea by a protection scheme that he administers at Paddock Beach. Funded by the Global Environment Facility, he's convinced hard-up fishermen to alert him when they net turtles. He pays €20 per turtle to compensate for damage to their nets and for help to return the creatures to the sea. They go back to the deep marked with blue tags from a Tunis-based centre for monitoring Mediterranean sea life. It's believed the young green turtle was attracted to Albanian waters in search of food. Haxhiu said that while older green turtles dine on algae, the younger ones are carnivorous, and he thought that the green turtle that was caught with the loggerhead turtles was probably looking for a feast of crabs. Many turtles, some weighing up to 100 kilos, feed off the crabs along the Adriatic coast. Sea turtles first appeared on the planet Earth 110 million years ago. But over the last 50 to 60 years, human disturbances have brought these marine reptiles to the brink of extinction. Zoologists have told fishermen we should protect these creatures as they were living in the time of the dinosaurs. Children pour into Seoul's City SeaWorld Aquarium to see these baby sharks, born in captivity, but by natural means. The 8 20-centimetre long baby sharks have been put in a small box inside the aquarium to protect them from attacks from the more aggressive, larger sharks that swim around the box. They've wooed the aquarium's visitors that are stunned by their tiny size compared to the older ones that circle them. In 2 years, they will grow to around 1 metre. Some sharks lay eggs and others give birth. Visitors were delighted by the little sharks, and children couldn't take their eyes off them. Only 3 of the baby sharks were on display. The other 5 were resting in a back room of the aquarium. The mother of these babies gave birth to 10, but 2 of them were stillborn. SeaWorld has 20,000 sea animals of 250 kinds, including 25 sharks of 6 different kinds. These flesh-eating scavengers, 8 baby condors in all, which as adults will have a wingspan of more than 3 meters, were being prepared by Chilean and Argentine conservationists for release in central Chile. The condor is the world's heaviest bird capable of flight and can travel 200 kilometers in a day. The 2-year-old chicks, mainly the offspring of adults in Argentine and Chilean zoos, were moved to a spacious cage on a rocky plateau on the Yerba Loca Nature Reserve near Santiago. They were becoming familiar with their natural habitat. The idea is that they will join their peers eventually. That, keepers say, will be a very emotional moment. The project members were especially fond of one of the birds, the son of a condor pair given as a gift in 1972 by socialist Chilean President Salvador Allende to Cuban President Fidel Castro. The condor couple, still living in the Havana Zoo, produced an egg that was taken to Buenos Aires for incubation and hatching. The chick was then brought to Chile in a symbolic return home. Bald-headed, beady-eyed, and soaring at altitudes of 4,570 meters, condors have been revered by indigenous people through the ages. Andean civilizations called the birds the spirit of the Andes, believing the winged giants to be an intermediary between earthly souls and God. They portrayed them in pottery and rock paintings. The condor population, once flourishing in the Andes from Venezuela in the north to Tierra del Fuego at the southern tip of South America, was gradually devastated after the arrival of Europeans on the continent over 500 years ago. Farmers mistakenly believed that the fierce-looking creature attacked livestock and opted to kill off as many as possible to protect their flocks. In reality, condors, like vultures, eat only carrion. The condor has been declared extinct in Venezuela, and fewer than 100 specimens are believed to survive in Colombia and Ecuador. The population in Peru and Bolivia has dwindled dramatically. It is bigger in Chile and Argentina, but still considered endangered. Extreme precautions are being taken to ensure that the chicks have no human contact. Conservationists coax newborn chicks to eat by using life-size condor puppets made of latex and felt. Sprouting downy brown feathers and already more than 1 meter tall, these chicks may need help in feeding themselves for up to 6 months after their release. With help from NASA, their flight patterns and nesting sites will be traced via microchips and satellite images. Amid the numerous threats already faced by the world's largest mammals, environmentalists say another looms large. Some environmental groups claim that whales might fall victim to US government-approved technology, depending whether or not the US Navy receives approval to deploy sonar systems in oceans around the world. The new sonar system is named the Surveillance Towed Array Sensor System, or SIRTAS. The technology is being hailed by the Navy as being more effective and far-reaching than sonar systems already in use. Critics say the LFA sonar is more damaging to the environment. They say that established mid-frequency sonar is a danger to marine animals. And continual sonar pings from private vessels that are searching for oil deposits. Critics of the new sonar contend that loud, low-frequency sound blasts have the potential to change behaviour patterns and physically damage sea mammals. They wish to invoke the precautionary principle. Environmentalists say there is just not enough evidence that this technology will not adversely affect the marine ecosystem as a whole. The hearing anatomy of whales is very sensitive and more vulnerable to sound waves underwater than human hearing. Whales rely on their hearing and vocalizations for breeding, migrating and feeding, often communicating over great distances with other whales. The Navy has conducted tests and says that very close up the sound could injure sea mammals, but that the sound diminishes quickly with distance. Environmentalists say the Navy still has not determined the long-term effects on animals, especially whales. There was once a time when these buffaloes would have been valuable assets to any farm across Thailand. But now, with widespread use of tractors and other machinery, Thailand's working water buffaloes have been made redundant. Many of them are turned loose to fend for themselves, while thousands more are sent to slaughterhouses. But in northern Thailand's Chiang Mai province, there's a small place called Ban Kwai Thai Buffalo Camp. It's a sanctuary for 18 lucky buffaloes. This camp was set up to try and preserve traditional Thai farming techniques. It's open to the public, and each day dozens of tourists are given the chance to not only learn about Thai farming, but also take part. One tourist, Australian Tim McCarthy, says it was sad the animals had been let out to pasture. Here tourists are shown how to plough fields and plant rice. They are also allowed to ride the beasts around the lush green rice paddies, which is a special experience according to those who take part. The managers of this buffalo camp say many children growing up in Thailand have no idea about how important buffaloes have been in the country's farming history and how much needs to be done to save them. In 1981, there were 6.1 million buffaloes in Thai fields. Years later, that number has dropped to just 1.2 million. Ban Kwai Farm is a private self-sufficient project which is helped by donations from visiting tourists. And the camp hopes to encourage others in Thailand to set up buffalo camps so we can ensure the survival of this gentle beast. In this tiny pet photo studio in Beijing, White Dragon is enjoying her 15 minutes of fame in the modelling spotlight. White Dragon's owner is planning to sell this image of his beloved pooch to advertisers, hoping to exploit a growing passion for pet dogs in China. The number of dogs in Beijing is growing. Affluence and an increasing need for companionship in the one-child era has encouraged the trend, which has also sparked a boom in the pet provision sector. In the communist era, keeping a pet in China was frowned upon as a decadent habit, and dog-beating squads would prowl the streets during eradication campaigns. But pet photo studio owner Lao Quinn believes brighter days are ahead for man's best friend and for entrepreneurs like him. But Beijing remains one of the most difficult and expensive places in the world to keep a dog. Owners must pay one-off fees to keep a dog, and then money every year. An enormous sum in a developing country like China. Police regularly round up unlicensed animals. Owners are only allowed to walk their dogs between the hours of 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. And in Beijing, there's a size restriction. Dogs over 35 centimeters tall are forbidden. The International Fund for Animal Welfare says despite improvements, abuse of dogs remains widespread. The police dog squads in particular have been criticised for the way they deal with animals once they have rounded them up. On the outskirts of Beijing, Zhang Luping is fighting her own battle to protect dogs. She set up the city's first private animal rescue and adoption centre. Zhang has given home to almost 200 dogs abandoned or mistreated by their owners. Zhang says ignorance about what it takes to look after an animal is a major problem in China. Despite draconian laws, a new generation of dogs is getting used to the pampering and care afforded to dogs in other, more dog-friendly countries. Little Tiger is enjoying an afternoon at the hairdresser's. Pampered by two stylists, Little Tiger is lucky not to have been born in the era when dogs were the class enemy. For the local residents of Brasov, they are just somewhere to leave the rubbish. But for the bears living in the surrounding hills, these bins provide easy pickings. It's not the first time the bears have descended on Brasov, a district of about 400,000 people. Up until a few years ago, they were a common sight at night. But then the local authority introduced bins with lids, and the bears disappeared. Since then, though, residents have been leaving the bins uncovered, and the bears are back. There are fears, however, that the bears could turn on local residents. Many of those who wander down the hill are mothers with young cubs, and if they feel the cubs are under a threat, they could attack. Bears have attacked two local residents recently, causing minor injuries. The reason for the absence of male bears is that the authorities encourage hunting, which targets large male bears. These three baby raccoons are being raised by their adoptive father, the head of Badsaro Zoo, after the furry animals were abandoned by their mother. Local authorities first delivered Pino to his new home after the male raccoon was found almost starved to death. Not long after, two more raccoons joined Pino. They too were abandoned by their mother, and the three raccoons are being bottle-fed now by Hartmut Richter, head of the zoo. Looking at the cute little animals, one does wonder whether raccoons could be kept as pets. Richter says you need a big cage and somewhere where the raccoons can retreat to at night. He says they're a little bit like cats. At least you can train them somewhat. Raccoons were originally brought to Central Europe and bred for the fur trade. They later established themselves in the wild and have become a nuisance, stealing fruit. According to animal conservationists, some 100,000 raccoons live in Germany, which can be problematic since they spread rabies. This 4-metre, 700-kilo shark is thought to have either bitten its way into this tuna pond or leapt a 2.5-metre electrified fence while chasing a seal. Scientists at this pen off the coast of the South Australian tuna fishing town of Port Lincoln said the shark had swum contentedly around the pen for a while, but they're not sure how the tuna feel about their uninvited guest. Scientists who are studying tuna feeding said they finally coaxed the great white out of the cage by using a net to funnel it out through underwater gates. A head count at the tuna revealed 2 missing. Billy the Pigeon flew into Manchester Airport on a British Airways flight where his owners John and Maria Warren were eagerly awaiting his homecoming. The racing pigeon was only due to fly the 425 miles from Calais to his home in Merseyside in a race when he took a wrong turn and ended up in New York. In getting lost, Billy took a 3,000-mile detour before ending up on a New York terrace, home to a flock of 100 racing birds. Billy was finally reunited with John Warren after a 6-hour flight from JFK International Airport. Before he could return home, Billy's required to spend 31 days in quarantine. Warren says it would take a few months to get Billy back to peak condition after the harrowing journey across the Atlantic, during which he may have been attacked by a hawk. But this won't be the end of Billy's career. Warren foresees another journey ahead for the racing pigeon and its newfound notoriety. Warren said with a chuckle he'll be going over the channel again. Hopefully he'll make it to Britain and not New York.